this regular meeting of the Lincoln Lancaster County Planning Commission, April 24th, 2024. I'm going to start that over. Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order this regular meeting of the Lincoln Lancaster County Planning Commission, April 24th, 2024. A printed agenda is available outside the hearing room, and a copy of the full agenda, including the staff reports, is available online or at the Planning Department, room 213. The Open Meetings Act is posted just inside the doors at the back of the room. If you are parked in the parking lot across the street to the north, the gate is open and no parking coupons are needed. Out of courtesy for those attending this meeting, commissioners and the staff, cell phones may not be used in the chamber during any portion of this meeting. We appreciate your cooperation. Please note, the Planning Commission action today is final on the following items. 1.5, Special Permit 24010, 4.2C, Preliminary Plat 24002, 4.2D, Special Permit 24005. Any aggrieved person may appeal final action of the Planning Commission to the City Council or the County Board by filing a notice of appeal with the clerk within 14 days following the action of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission action on all of today's items is a recommendation to the City Council or the County Board. The first item of business is the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting held April 10th, 2024. Is there a motion?
So moved. Campbell.
Second, Joy.
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Minutes approved.
Steve.
Steve Hendrickson with the Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street. Just before we started our meeting today, as you're aware, last January we had Tom Chaka, our longtime county planner, retire, and George Wesselhoff in our office has replaced him. And so we'd like to introduce the newest and probably improved Steve to join our office, Steve Dush, who brings with us nearly 30 years of experience in planning throughout the country. So we are very fortunate to have him join us. He will be covering the east and central portion of Lincoln. And we had actually hoped that he would start with a presentation today later, but that item's been postponed. But we still wanted to give him a chance to introduce himself to all the Planning Commission members as well.
Is this on?
Yeah.
Well, hello again, Steve Dush, 555 South 10th Street. So again, thank you for giving me a minute or two. A little bit about me: I'm a proud Nebraska alum, Nebraska native, and as a child, I remember coming to Lincoln, the big city, and seeing the Capitol. And so it's pretty cool to be able to come here and serve the city. So very happy to be here.
Thank you very much. We're excited to have you join the Planning Department.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to your presentation in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, Steve had mentioned some walk-up music, so hopefully should be pretty good. So thanks
We'll be
again.
working on that.
I actually think coming up with the walk-up song for everybody in the Planning Department sounds like a good staff meeting
like
that
it.
David's forward to. All right, excellent.
Work on that.
We'll now proceed with today's agenda. The next item of business is the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda will be called at the same time and will not be scheduled for a separate public hearing unless there is a request from someone wishing to speak or at the request of a commission member. I will ask Shelley to read all the consent agenda items into the record. Once those items are read, she will ask if there is anyone wishing to speak. If you wish to speak on an item on the consent agenda, we would ask that you stand and state that item. That item will then be removed from the consent agenda and scheduled as a separate public hearing under Section 3 of today's agenda. All items remaining on the consent agenda will be voted upon in total with a motion for approval. Shelley, will you please call the items on the consent agenda?
I will note that item 1.2, Comprehensive Plan Conformance 24008, is being removed from today's consent agenda for a request for a 4-week deferral. First item is item 1.1, Comprehensive Plan Conformance 24007, to review as to conformance with the 2050 Lincoln Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan, amendment to the Greater Downtown Principal Corridors Redevelopment Project within the Lincoln Center Redevelopment Plan, Antelope Valley Redevelopment Plan, and North 27th Street Corridor Redevelopment Plan to update the list and map of separate redevelopment projects that will be removed from the overall project boundary upon substantial completion and revised amount of TIF available for the project, along with an updated cost-benefit analysis with an overall project boundary, including publicly and privately owned property on specific streets in an area roughly bounded by 9th to 28th Street from K to S streets. Item 1.3, text amendment 24003, to amend the Lincoln Municipal Code 2752075 and 2753075 regarding flood regulations for existing urban area and new growth areas to clarify the grandfathering for applications prior to March 2023. Item 1.4, text amendment 24004, amending Lincoln Municipal Code 276740, parking requirements, special conditions, to remove parking requirements in B2 and B5 for sale of alcoholic beverages with on-premises consumption, restaurants, and social halls. Item 1.5, special permit 24010, to allow the sale of alcohol for consumption on the premises on property generally located at 1055 West Bond Street. This is a final action. Item 1.6A, change of zone 24009 from AGR Agricultural Residential District to R3 Residential District over approximately 11.38 acres legally described as the remaining portions of lots 4, 5, and 6, and all of lot 7, block 3, Clarendon Hills, on property generally located at South 70th and Pine Lake Road. Item 1.6B, special permit 24011, to allow for a residential healthcare facility for up to 83 units with a waiver to maximum height on property legally described as remaining portions of lot 4, 5, and 6, and a portion of lot 7, block 3 of Clarendon Hills on property generally located at South 70th Street and Pine Lake Road. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these items?
No.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting these sites to be disclosed?
No.
If there is anyone here wishing to speak on these consent agenda items, please stand and state that item.
Does that include the 1.3?
Yes.
Yes.
I wish to speak to it.
Yes, then stand and
I'll
come.
do it. At this age, I'm upright.
Well, he'll have
Okay,
to
well,
come
no,
to
no, we're
public
not
hearing.
going to come forward. We just needed to hear you. It is 1 point, and we'll call you forward in a minute.
Thank you. You're very kind.
Welcome. Okay.
I would move that we move 1.3 to item 3 on the agenda.
Second, Joy.
Do we need a deferral for that? Or do we need a
It's
request?
pulled.
I don't think we need a
We
motion
don't
for
need,
that.
We don't need any official action. We just pull it from the agenda, right? Okay.
So
thank
you just need
Could you
the
rescind
motion?
your motion, please?
Yes,
Okay,
Send
thank
the
you.
second.
I would move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second, Joy.
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Consent agenda approved, 7-0.
Okay, we will now have Shelley call the items for the request for deferral.
We did receive written communication from the applicant requesting a 4-week deferral to the May 22nd, 2024 Planning Commission hearing for item 1.2 Comprehensive Plan Conformance 24008. And I will also note that we received a request on behalf of the applicant that East Dominion Estates project, which includes item 4.3A, annexation 24003, item 4.3B, change of zone 24010, and item 4.3C, special permit 24012, to be deferred for 2 weeks to the May 8th Planning Commission hearing. We also received written communication from the applicant now requesting from a 2-week to 4-week deferral in regards to the Southwood Center, which includes item 5.1A, change of zone 24006, and item 5.1B, associated use permit 15F, which will delay public hearing action to the May 22nd, 2024 Planning Commission hearing.
Move to approve the deferrals.
Second, Joy.
Okay, we have to have a motion on each one.
Each one,
So your first motion would be for item 1.2.
1.2, that's correct.
Second, Joy.
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
And I would move that we approve deferral on 4 help me out, Shelley.
3A and
Oh,
4.3C.
4.3A through 4.3C.
We can
Yeah.
do those at once?
Yes.
Okay.
4.3A, B, and C.
Second, Joy.
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
And I would move that we approve deferral for, was it 4 weeks or 2?
4 weeks.
4 weeks
5.
on item 5.1A and 5.2A.
5.1B.
5.1B.
There isn't a 1B.
I know.
It does.
It's our numbering mistake. All right.
No worries. Second, Joy.
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Approved 7-0.
Okay. All three of those motions have now been approved. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on any of those applications today?
Perfect.
Okay. We will now proceed to public hearings. Prior to staff making a brief presentation, each staff person should state their name, agency, and address. The applicant will then be requested to present his or her testimony, followed by those who wish to testify in support, followed by those who wish to testify in opposition. The staff will then be given an opportunity to respond to the testimony, and then the applicant shall have an opportunity for rebuttal. If during your testimony you have copies of documents or materials you would like distributed to the Planning Commission members and/or included as a part of the record, please provide them to the clerk. Each person testifying should state their name and address and shall have 5 minutes to speak unless additional time is requested and granted. The clerk will use the light system to help aid your timing for your testimony. The lights appear on the monitors provided. The clerk will indicate when you have 1 minute remaining to wrap up your testimony. The red light indicates that your 5 minutes has expired. Once the final minute has lapsed, the clerk will indicate your time is up. The Planning Commission will vote immediately at the close of the public hearing unless the commission votes to defer action or to continue the public hearing. Shelley, please call the first public hearing item.
The first item will be item 1.3, which was removed from the consent agenda, text amendment 24003 to amend the Lincoln Municipal Code 2752075 and 2753075 regarding flood regulations for existing urban area and new growth areas to clarify the grandfathering for applications prior to March 2023.
Steve Hendrickson with the Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street. This text amendment is, in essence, just a cleanup to the previous text amendment that was in front of the Planning Commission and was approved by the City Council in early 2023, so a little over a year ago. There's a lot of discussion about that text amendment, and it really focused on both subdivision and the zoning ordinance. And there was very specific text about how do you grandfather specific types of applications: a planned unit development, a preliminary plat, a CUP, a use permit. And so in the subdivision ordinance, there was very specific language about that grandfathering, make sure it was clear when you have a project that's already gone through, done its grading, and it's got everything set up. The change to a 2-foot rather than the 1-foot freeboard would be quite a big financial impact. And so those developments were considered grandfathered under the subdivision ordinance. Well, of course, with all text amendments that have multiple parts to it, once you get started down the road, and that amendment was effective March 1st, 2023, it became clear that we had not done the exact same type of grandfathering, or something similar, I should say, in the zoning ordinance. And so particularly when we have letters of map revisions being processed afterwards, there wasn't anything in the zoning ordinance that made it clear that that too was grandfathered. And so the text amendment that you have in front of you today is specifically to make sure that that grandfathering that was in the subdivision ordinance is also addressed then in the zoning ordinance, and then also to address then when you have a letter of map revision, which is over in the zoning side, when that is being reviewed by building and safety, there to use the grandfathered information and not necessarily the new 2-foot freeboard. Also have John Carlson, who has spent many months last year and into this year working with members of the development community to try to address multiple issues that and questions that came up. And you might see with the staff report that there's a whole list of questions that we were kind of documenting as we went along to try to help answer questions that people had about the ordinance. So this really isn't meant to change any of the provisions. It's just simply to address one aspect of it that wasn't as perfectly handled as we would have liked. And so both myself and John are here if we have any questions on that item.
Okay. People have questions at this time? All right. We may hear in a minute, but thank you very much. All right. At this point, we will take testimony in support of this item, testimony in a neutral position, or testimony in opposition.
Mike Dennis, 1648 South 3rd. In 2020, I started the process to build a new warehouse. And I was informed that I obviously had to meet all existing regulations and rules. So as we filled the lot 6 feet above the curb and processed through all the rules and regulations, and we kept surveyors on hand, obviously people with a lot of engineering expertise, and we proceeded through the process, meeting all the rules and regulations. I'm probably 2 feet above the curb. However, my surveyor has been after this for about 3 years. Joe is a wonderful person. He operates a very good survey firm, but apparently checked in with the appropriate people in City Hall and said the statement has always been the same. We typically are working on some new rules. And so I called him today and I said, hey, what's with this item here? Well, he said that he'll have to use the new form. Well, fine, he can use the new form, I don't care. However, for over 20 years, I have been trying to get floodplain exempt permit or exemption, whichever you wish to call it. Consequently, some agency within the government, sometimes people beyond City Hall here, the feds have an interest in what happens. But anyway, we have been on, it's an ongoing change. Everything is, and so consequently, my application was never processed. It sits there on Joe's desk, a wonderful person, and I think he really knows what he's doing. But in checking with City Hall, he said that, hey, a new form is being filled out. Well, today I read this that, hey, I missed it. I'm not sure that I am behind the curve, but I have a feeling that I am. Consequently, I would like to ask that this be delayed until we can figure out who's doing what to whom, and Joe needs to see if my floodplain exempt permit could be processed. He has been denied the process, right? And he's a very nice person, good surveyor. So I don't know what's going on with Joe or what's going on with City Hall because I left it in their hands, but it's been over 3 years since I started the second process to get through it. And other attempts too. And always the comment is, well, we're working on new forms, or we're working on rules of elevation. We're changing the elevation. Fine, I'm pretty well covered. But, At some point, and by the way, John Carlson's a wonderful person, but we didn't talk about this. We perhaps should have, but it's one building, it's 200 feet of industrial land. I have a large warehouse sitting there, and I would like to get out of buying floodplain insurance if I can. Now, I know that everybody steps up and buys all the insurance we can. I do, but this is one I really would rather not. So I would like to have somebody from City Hall, perhaps John, talk to me at some point, and maybe we can figure out what we can do about this. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, questions for staff?
Yes. John, you want to get involved?
I'll start with the question in specifically. So with any application, if an application was made prior to May 1st, 2023, had that application been made and processed, then it would have been handled under the previous rules. If an application was not made, it was somebody was working on it and they meant to turn it in and they were waiting for X, Y, and Z. I'm sorry about that, and we'll certainly meet with Mr. Dennis to talk about his specifics, but anybody who didn't turn in an application or still hasn't, they weren't grandfathered last March, and this wouldn't change their status either. Would also note that if somebody did go ahead and do the floodplain work but never got a building permit, their floodplain work was, if it was done with the floodplain permit, that's fine. But if they never did anything with a property, they might still have to meet the 2-foot flood standard, the 2 foot above the freeboard flood elevation, because they never got a building permit. We'll certainly meet with Mr. Dennis. This is a recommendation today from the Planning Commission, so it'll be almost 3 weeks until we have the City Council hearing and then their vote after that, so there'll be time to chat with Mr. Dennis. But I don't think this particular text amendment changes his circumstances at all, because if he doesn't have a building permit that was submitted prior to March 1st, 2023, then under the previous rules or this, it's not grandfathered.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. So Dick, did I help address your question, or? Okay.
Additional questions?
Yes, I did build the
No.
building
S-
in
s- s-
2021. And I did receive all of the appropriate rules of how to do this, the engineers. The building is a very nice building, and it's there.
So, but yes, we'll definitely meet with Mr. Dennis to try to go over things and make sure we understand the circumstances. Correct.
And so if he built a building and had a building permit in 21, this would apply to him, to grandfathering.
So if you build a building in 2021, the rules would not have been changed, and you would have been reviewed prior to the rules that you would have, in effect, been grandfathered in, because there was no rule change for 2 years until 2 years, more years into the
Right.
future. So it should have been reviewed under the old rules previously.
Excuse me, I think Mr. Dennis is not concerned about whether he can build his building, it's already built. He is concerned about the flood insurance that would be applied to that building.
And this,
But I think that is separate from this text amendment, and what we
Exactly.
are considering today is the text amendment.
correct, right.
And again, it is a recommendation to the city council, so that does allow for time for additional conversation.
So just to your comment, outside of the procedural things you mentioned in terms of permits and exemptions, what we're recommending today is somewhat immaterial to that process, right?
Correct. This is really addressing planned unit developments, community unit plans that are very usually large projects for multiple properties, and specifically those that went forward and had grading plans approved prior to March 1st, 2023. And so we wanted to make sure that that status that's clear in the subdivision ordinance is also in the zoning ordinance. So any individual permits that are outside of the PUD or use permit or CUP, it wouldn't apply to those at all.
And the grandfathering pertains to projects that have yet to need to be reviewed. So if you've already been reviewed, That's already been done under the previous standards.
So would there then be 2 dates of grandfathering if we pass this amendment and the city council does also?
No, the date is the same. This is getting what the dates are in the subdivision ordinance and now adding them to zoning so that they are the same.
Thank you.
Good clarification questions? Yes, Dick.
No, not a question. I was gonna,
Oh, all right,
Okay.
you ready? Okay.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second, Joy.
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Public hearing closed.
And I would move that we approve text amendment 24003.
Second, Joy.
My reasoning behind it is the fact that Mr. Dennis's concerns, I think, are going to be addressed by the planning staff with him. And it's a different question that he has rather than what we had worked diligently through before March 23rd.
And yeah, I would agree with Commissioner Campbell on that. And ideally, I'm assuming that a lot of those documents were completed, and it was just a matter of procedural hang-up for whatever that is for getting that exemption. So appreciate the staff willing to have the conversation.
Well, and also in as much as they're in the process of reviewing the floodplain reservation or floodplain requirements, I'm not sure that at this point in time that his property would not be removed from the floodplain by being raised to that past that 1 foot limit, and I don't know if it's grandfathered. Then that would be up to the staff to discuss with Mr. Dennis.
All right. Shelley?
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg.
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Approved 7-0. We'll now move to public hearing item 4.1, Comprehensive Plan Conformance 24006. To review as to conformance with the 2050 Lincoln-Lancaster County Comprehensive Plan, the City of Lincoln's Capital Improvement Program for fiscal year 2024-2025 to fiscal year 2029 to 2030. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on this application?
No.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting any of this site to be disclosed?
Other than we had a briefing on this.
Yes.
Well, thank you for having us. Andrew Theroff, Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street. This is an exciting day. There's been a lot of work going into this. This is the comprehensive plan review for the CIP for fiscal year 24-25 through 29-30. I do have a really quick presentation to show you, just so we're all on the same page about our role. And then at the end, we have time for questions. So what we'll talk about real quick is the CIP process, where we are today. We'll talk about the planning commissioner's role in that process, and then we'll provide a very, very quick summary of the proposals. So this is a 6-year CIP. The first 2 years go into the budget. Years 3 through 6 are important, but they're not actually part of the budget, but they are for planning purposes only, so we can prepare for future budget years. The CIP was reviewed by planning department staff, but also the Capital Improvement Advisory Committee that included some department heads, representatives from finance, and the mayor's office as well. So this is the Planning Commission's recommendation for the CIP. It's important to note that the CIP can be amended at any time. We actually have a CIP amendment coming 4 weeks from now for the old CIP. So any time when the CIP is new or amended, we do need a Planning Commission review to make sure those projects conform with the comp plan. So what are capital improvements? This is designated in the city charter. So it's any acquisition of real property, construction of buildings, purchasing of equipment, just generally anything with a useful life of 15 or more years. The capital budget is separate from the operating budget. So capital budget is capital items. Operating budget is things like staff, maintenance, those types of items. So this is a high-level look of where we're at in the process. Last fall, we had departments submit their proposals for what they wanted to have in the CIP, and then we reviewed those proposals. Earlier in this spring, we put together the PC version of the CIP for public review, and then we had the briefing 2 weeks ago. Today, we're at the PC hearing, and that's to find conformity with the comp plan. And then after this hearing, the first 2 years of the CIP will be forwarded to finance and become part of the budget process with City Council later this summer. So what we're looking at today is whether these projects conform with the comp plan. And again, this is right out of the city charter. It says the CIP document shall describe the character and degree of conformity and nonconformity of each project as it relates to the comp plan. So really that's why we're here, is we're trying to achieve what the city charter says. So as part of our CIP review, we have 4 levels of conformance or nonconformance. One is in conformance with the plan. So that means the plan specifically calls it out. So an example in the current CIP would be the South Haymarket Park, the comp plan, and then we also have the downtown master plan, South Haymarket plan. They all specifically say we should have a park in this location of the South Haymarket. Generally conforms with the plan is where maybe the comp plan doesn't specifically talk about the project, but it talks about the concept. So the comp plan has a sustainability goal. So there's projects that feed into that goal in the CIP. They're not specifically called out in the comp plan, but there's still something that obviously the comp plan supports. A couple other levels are, one, not in the plan. We don't have any of that instance, but maybe if it's some topic that's just not talked about in the comp plan. And then the other is not in conformance with the plan. So this would be something that specifically the comp plan says we don't want. Maybe we have growth areas. Maybe there'd be a proposal to have infrastructure outside of a growth area. We don't have that case with this CIP, but if we did, that would be something that would be not in conformance. So the factors we use, one, like I mentioned, is just explicit reference. Some of these projects, the comp plan specifically says we want to do this. Other times it's plan intent. We look at the location. I mentioned growth areas. We look at timing. Again, we have our growth areas with the timing. And then each project, when you get into the document, has a description and a definition of what that project is. So when we talk about comp plan conformance, it's not just the comp plan. Obviously, there is the comp plan, and we have future land use map, growth area maps, we have goals, and then we have 80 policies and hundreds of action items within those policies. So there's all of that we're looking at, but also any items that have been adopted into the comp plan. The LRTP is on here as an example, climate action plan, food master plan, downtown master plan. Any of those types of documents that are adopted in the comp plan are also what we're looking at when we're talking about conformance. So planning staff, before this hearing, planning staff did do a review of all the projects, and in our opinion, all the projects have been found to be in conformance or general conformance with the comp plan. So we did not forward you any projects that we felt were not appropriate for the comp plan. So just at a really high level, looking at our projects, we had 229 projects submitted this time. The first fiscal year, we had about $547 million in projects. The second fiscal year, about $339 million. And again, those would be the two budget years that will then be passed on to finance and city council. Across all 6 years, the CIP is showing about $1.9 billion of projects. So for looking at the proposals, there's a few options. The first is that we directly sent you a PDF a couple weeks ago of the CIP. That document has one very tiny change. There was an urban development project that was previously called the Downtown Entryways Redevelopment Project. We changed the name to the Downtown Corridors Project, and that was the only change. The rest of the project's the same. Beyond what we sent you, the planning department does have a CIP page. So one option is you can go to lincoln.na.gov and type in those keywords. Also, if you go to the planning department page, at the top we have a news section, and the CIP is right at the top of that. So that has the complete PDF of the document. The PDF is great. One, if you want to have a paper copy, the PDF is a good starting point. But it also summarizes all the departments. It summarizes the different funding sources. So it's the most comprehensive document if you want to get into details of the projects. We also have an interactive map that just launched, and here's kind of a screenshot of it on the right side of this slide, but that shows all of the CIP projects. It shows the locations, you can zoom in, click on them, see project descriptions, get more information that way. So we expect moving forward as we're looking up, well, what did we show for this project or this project? The interactive map is probably going to be the most useful functionality of the CIP, and that's something new this year, so we're excited about that. That's all I had for the opening presentation. We have representatives from most of the other departments and divisions, so if you have specific project questions, we'll be happy to answer that.
Any questions at this time? All right.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. All right, do we have testimony in support? Any neutral testimony or testimony in opposition? Y'all have questions for any of the specific departments or for Andrew or anyone else in planning?
I would move that we close the public hearing.
Second, Joy.
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg.
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Public hearing closed.
And I would move that we approve Comprehensive Plan Conformance 24006.
Second, Joy.
Discussion?
I think they've laid out a very good plan. It was very, during our briefing, it was very complete. It went through all the details, and I was very comfortable with what the entire staff has put together on this.
Yeah, I also appreciated the briefing that we had and the fact that we could go and dig into the details, and it seems like it's very well processed and thought out, and I will be voting for this.
Well, I mean, I'll applaud the planning department for using GIS and that map system. I think it's super amazing, and it'll be very useful for the public as well.
Yeah, I just thank you for the presentation today and the briefing, but thank you to all of the staff that are here today from the various city departments. It's actually nice to see so many people at the Planning Commission meeting, but I really appreciate the work that has been done to continue to enhance our community and further development, and really encourage people to take a look at the map because it is a really wonderful tool. So thank you all so much.
All right, Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg.
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Approved 7-0. We'll now go into public hearing for items 4.2A, annexation 23008, to annex approximately 37.75 acres, more or less, and an adjacent North 70th Street right-of-way on property generally located at the northwest corner of North 70th Street and Arbor Road, associated with item 4.2B, change of zone 23057 from AG Agricultural District to I-1 Industrial District, totaling approximately 34.24 acres, more or less, on property generally located at the northwest corner of North 70th Street and Arbor Road, associated with item 4.2C, preliminary plat 24002, to plat 4 industrial lots and 3 outlaws as part of the Arbor Road North Addition, a proposed industrial subdivision on property generally located at the northwest corner of North 70th Street and Arbor Road. This is a final action. And associated item 4.2D, special permit 24005, to allow for soil mining excavation on property generally located at the northwest corner of North 70th Street and Arbor Road. This is also final action. Are there any ex parte communications to be disclosed on these applications?
No.
Are there any ex parte communications that took place or additional information you learned while visiting any of these sites to be disclosed?
No.
Good afternoon, Ben Callahan with the Planning Department, 555 South 10th Street. I'll go ahead and talk through all 4 applications at one time. So to start with, this is requesting an annexation and change of zone as a combined report. So this will be at the northwest corner of Arbor Road and North 70th Street, so just south of the interstate. The applicant is requesting the annexation of this property, which abuts the city limits on the west and the south right now. So to the west, there's I-1, and the south is I-2. And then actually to the north now abuts city limits as well as last week with the approval of the annexation. So it'd be on 3 sides, and then to the east would be the new city limits and zoned AG. It's roughly, the annexation is roughly 37 acres, and then the change of zone that's being requested would be 34 acres. And the reason for that is the change of zone would not include a private residence that's zoned AG today, and then ultimately the annexation will include the 70th Street right-of-way. One of the reasons for including the home in the annexation, planning felt, especially with emergency services, that way there's no confusion on that property being served not within the city, and then it would get all the right-of-way under the city maintenance there. So with this, they're requesting a change of zone to I-1 to allow for the development, which we'll go through. So in kind of in a timeline period for this project, the next thing they requested was a special permit, and also on the same property layout here would not have any tie with the private residence. So a little more information, but what they're wanting to do is a special permit which allows soil mining and excavation on the site. So they're within their development could go up to 3 years is when those would time out, but they're proposing to soil mine on site and then allow them to basically grade into their future preliminary plat for development. So within the staff report for the special permit, we did have some conditions as both LTU and health are a part of this review. One of the larger concerns that came up with this is with soil mining, they have to submit a hydrology report, and they look at the surrounding wells that the excavation could actually damage. So the only one that health had a concern for was this property, and that's because the well was unregistered, so there's not a lot of background on how deep the well is. So in part in working with the developer, we did add the condition that they would either have to revise and show that their well would not be altered in any way or brought down with the excavation, or the developer agreed to do a surety, and that would be paid to LTU. So if there was any damage and they needed connection to water, the developer would then pay for the connection for the home to city water, since they'll be inside city limits. So with the special permit on excavation, then after that would be over, then there's the request for the combined preliminary plat with this application. At that point would be zoned I-1, so developing under I-1 uses, and they're showing on this, so one larger lot here on the west side is an outlot for detention and floodway, a larger lot in the middle, and then there would be 3 additional smaller lots on the site. Their access here would be on private driveways that would come in to serve the site, so one entrance off of Arbor Road and then one off of 70th. This was a request starting out with the project to have them do a preliminary plat for this reason, so LTU, other departments could be part of this. Currently, these are minor arterials that they'd be taking access off. So working with LTU in a traffic study, we did put a condition in there that we would want the 2 driveways, which were at one time not shown, to connect. So we'd actually only have, like these 2 lots would only have access off 70th, and then these 2 would have access off Arbor. So we felt that would be a concern if there was no internal site connection. And part of that is because on North 70th, it will just be a right-in, right-out only. So that would limit how to even get into those 2 lots. And then on the south, they're going to work with LTU on a deviation for full access. But that was noted in the conditions for the preliminary plat that they would need to connect the drives. And then with some additional traffic improvements for striping turn lanes and the request. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah.
The assurity for the existing residents and their well, is there a sunset on that? If their well goes dry in 5 or 10 years, is that still covered, or is there a timeline on that?
I don't believe we put a timeline on that, and in being in the city, they're able to keep their well as long as it is working. If it was to fail and be found that it was due to the excavation or during that time, then that was the point where the surety would pick up.
That was my question, is during what time?
I believe during the excavation period.
Other questions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is the Arbor Road entrance so much larger than the one off of 70th?
For this area here, I believe this would just be their entrance and then entrance here.
Okay, so what's the reason for the additional width then to the east?
So that width would not be technically like a pull-out or entrance onto the street. It's just how the outlot is lining up with the right-of-way.
Okay.
So I believe on their site, they have the road come in and then it kind of turns back, but that you wouldn't be able to exit.
Got it.
An entrance on that whole part.
Okay.
Thank you. Take testimony from the applicant.
I'll start. My name's Rob Ott, 129 North 10th Street, Suite 313. I wanted to raise just something, a couple of things. First, you might note that anything you see from me is I'm General Counsel of U.S. Properties. This property is owned by Pacific Empire Developers, Inc., and that's because of a 1031 tax exchange that we're working on. So we represent them. They're remote from Nebraska, but we have authority to represent them because ultimately it's going to be our property or whatever entity we put that into. So I wanted to just make that clear that that we're representing that property. I want to thank Ben for giving my presentation. These kind of projects, there's a lot going on, and Nate's going to talk a little bit about the more specifics, and I'm going to sit down. This is a complicated piece of property because on the east side where that home is, to the west side, which is where the floodway is, might be a 40 or 50 foot drop. So it's really complicated, and Nate and Ben really have done a lot of work in going through all of the details on how we get access, what kind of dirt we have to pull out of the place, how high we're going to make it, and we don't know all those things right now, but we're going to work on it and eventually get to the point where we could have a final plat and maybe put something there. We've had a good relationship with the owner and his wife, and been out to his property a number of times, and think we'll continue that relationship. The driveways are a little unique in that Arbor Road is the path to nowhere going east. It's not going to open up, and 70th Street is going to become a little more complicated because of what the use is going north. We recognize that. The only issue that I would have, I guess, is the bond or the surety for the water well. You've got a lot of hammers to hold over our head before we ever get anything done on this site. We don't think the mining will affect them at all. The mining is in stages. It's not going to happen it will happen over a course of years. So respectfully, we'd appreciate a motion that that takes out that condition, because there's some language in about having an agreement and working with the health department. We think we can be responsible enough to do all of that as we get this project going, and that just another, and it isn't even that much, 37,000, I believe is the number. It's just not that much, but we've got a lot more investment in that, and those things just not only are an expense, but they're just problematic to get done and keep up, and how long a period of time they last and those sorts of things. We think we can work with the health department and make sure that Mr. Favlik and his wife are taken care of on that little piece of property. Other than that, thank you, Ben, for everything. I think he and Nate have worked together good, and I'll let Nate put a finer point on all of this.
Sure.
Thank you. Any questions of me before I sit down?
Have you talked with the homeowning couple about removing the?
Yeah. So we let them have access to a little roadway on our property. We've been out there. We've talked to them a number of times, and so I think they're happy with us, and we're happy with them at this point.
What about the well?
Right now, there hasn't been any issue with it. It's an unregistered well. I think maybe Ben said that. It's an unregistered well. We contacted them directly. I should have said this. We contacted them. I talked to Larry. He said he had that well serviced, he said 5 or 8 years ago. He said it's been there forever. He said he didn't know how deep it was. He didn't know what the pump motor was like. He didn't know what what the casings were like. So he really didn't have very much information. But we reached out to him, and he knew we were coming, and we sent him copies of the reports today.
Do we know the location of the well on that map?
I don't think we have. Do we have it on the map?
I think Terracon had as part of the hydrologic. Let's see.
I'm going to turn this over to Nate unless there's any other questions of me, because he has the
under
real
their
information.
Thank you.
Yeah, just as Rob mentioned, we had,
You need your
Okay,
name
sorry.
and all that, please,
Okay.
for the record.
Yeah, Nate Burnett, Rig Engineering, 601 Old Cheney, Suites A and B now.
Thank
As Rob mentioned, we had extensive coordination with the planning department, LTU, Chris Schroeder at the health department, and we originally had submitted this. The unregistered wells had come up, and so we've been coordinating with Terracon regarding this. They had looked into a number of different sources based on some conversations with the health department. So they had looked into the Lower Platte South information provided by UNL, the Department of Natural Resources. They could not find anything, so that's what brought us forward to reaching out to the adjacent landowner. And based on their, I guess, knowledge and where so the well's kind of up, so 70th Street is basically a high point for that area. Our property flows west to that creek that we're going to have in the outlot with the minimum flood corridor. Then on the east of 70th, that also flows down to a drainage way. Because of this being up higher, we're going to be, having to obviously tie into existing contours on that west side and sloping down. We will be doing some adjustments to the grading plan. Neither Terracon nor does Riga feel that we're going to impact that well. And so that's where we had brought forth this idea with, if there would be some impact with the preliminary plat when we bring infrastructure into the site, that there could be the potential to connect to the water mains that we bring into the site. That would be after the mining permit. I guess one other thing, as Rob mentioned, the mining permit requested is for 29 acres. And so we can only do 20 acres at a time. And so we'd be doing kind of this western portion. And so we would probably not even be within 100 or 150 feet of that property. And so if we need to make a motion to say, hey, as long as we're not within, 150 feet of the property, that agreement is not necessary, we could propose that as well. And I guess the last thing specifically on the mining permit is that in 2007, there was a already a previously approved mining permit on this property. And so this isn't the first time that soil mining has been proposed on this. As part of that previous permit, there was land disturbance on the west side of the creek. The permit at that time did not include, it included the work on the east side, but that work was not performed. So I guess that's kind of on the special permit. Regarding the preliminary plat, as Ben mentioned, 4 lots, one large one. We've got adjacent utilities. There's a 16-inch water main on the north side of Arbor. Sanitary sewer is available as well. We've worked through access with Kimley Horn and LTU. And I guess with that, I'd open up for any additional questions.
You mentioned the 20 acres that you can mine, starting on the west side there. Do you foresee, and again, like you said, you don't know yet until you get in there to determine how much you have to level, but do you determine you might have to resubmit another 3-year special permit to continue on?
It's possible.
Okay.
I mean, I think on any of the mining permits that we've done over the last 12 years, that it seems we always submit for that next 3 years. I think 200,000 yards is estimated for what we can mine on this site, and so our goal and the client's goal is to use that on their projects. And so this isn't necessarily like, hey, Gina's going to go out and just start selling this dirt to every project they have. Our goal is to use this for our clients' existing sites, and so that's going to be on a as-needed basis. And so I think that's where we're coming from, is we could put a surety up. We have no idea when their projects are going to go, when that dirt's going to need to be mined. And so, and especially with the 20 acres, I would assume we'd be back here in 3 years requesting to have that special permit amended.
Questions? Okay. Talk to you again in a little while, but otherwise, thank you for that. Do we have any testimony in support of this application? Any neutral or testimony in opposition? All right, staff questions.
Ben, if we were to waive that condition of having an assurity, can that be added later if they come back with an additional special permit or changes to their plat or anything like that?
I think it could be added later, but for planning support of it, we were supportive with the surety on there. And I can certainly, we have Chris Schroeder with the health department here today as well, so he may want to add in.
A quick question before you go. For the permit for the previous mining, was that in 2004?
Yeah, there were a few on the property, but as Nate mentioned, primarily it was larger than this area to the west.
Okay.
Where it's developed now. So this area's relatively not been mined.
Okay.
Hi, Chris Schroeder with the Lancaster County Health Department. To address the surety, we don't feel comfortable removing that as a condition of approval. I mean, if there's not an impact, then they won't need to use the surety.
What is the thing that was mentioned at the beginning, that as long as the well continues to operate, they can continue to use it even though they've been annexed, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And then at some point, dries up, fails, whatever, then they need to connect to city water, but they're not required within 5 years to connect with
Correct.
city water or anything at this
Right.
point.
Yeah, water wells are different than on-site wastewater treatment systems and connecting to sanitary sewer.
How is it determined? How can the couple prove or not prove that the mining did or did not affect their well? How do they go about? How is that decision made that the assurity needs to be used or not?
Sure, hard question. More than likely, they'll start to see a reduction in the well's production or quantity. We always go with the USGS recommendation of minimum 5 gallons a day production. And again, that would probably be a question for the geologist or hydrologist. And again, if you go back to the hydrology report, the concern is that because this is unregistered, it could be a shallower well.
Right.
And so they can't say for certain it's not going to be impacted.
Is that likely, being at the top of the hill and such?
It's hard to say,
Okay.
depending on where it's screened at, how deep it is.
And last, can it be removed later throughout the process, like when they present their PUD?
The
If
surety?
they have if they have the information more vetted.
I think that's something I'd want to talk with my staff and my boss about on the timing of it.
Yeah.
On when the impacts, when you could be assured there wouldn't be any potential impacts
Perfect.
from the mining.
Thank you.
You mentioned the quantity of water. Does this also address the quality? If they
With this type of operation, we lean more toward the quantity. If you're talking about water contaminants, theoretically, I guess if you get less, separation between the surface and the groundwater, there could be an increased potential for contamination, whether through nitrates. I assume this was ag land before. I mean, that could be a concern, but that's something that we could test for.
But this surety would cover quality and quantity.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
But which of these four proposals would that apply to?
The surety?
Yes,
It'd be tied with the special permit for mining.
the special permit for mining. Okay,
Which is 4.2D for.
right.
All right, additional questions?
In the staff report, it says that as part of condition of approval, health will require the developer to either provide revised information showing that the well will not be compromised or enter into
Right.
the agreement with the surety. So we approve this as is, there's still a potential opportunity for the applicant to show you information
Yep.
that the well will not be compromised.
Good point. Very good.
That's why you have an attorney on the planning commission. All right, thank you. I think any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Applicant rebuttal.
Rob Ott again. It's a little difficult in this case to talk about an unregistered well that the health department hasn't gone out and done any investigation on, and whether or not what we do is going to affect that well. I think we can be responsible enough over the course of time, and I know sometimes that doesn't really fly very well, but this is a pretty big project, and we're happy to work with the health department and establish what, where, and when a water line could be added to that property. But part of the problem is it sets up for some sort of dispute if we're doing some mining on the far end of the property and his well goes dry. What does that look like? Then are people in a dispute over whether or not the developer caused this? And that's why our position is the surety, and I don't want to get into a big dispute over it and take what's really a great project over kind of this little niggle, but it's kind of important in terms of, what does it do in terms of the neighbor? What does it do in terms of just having the bond, having it on file, where we really think we can work with the health department and put together an agreement that says, if we do something that we'll make sure that he has water. We don't know how long he'll be there, how long that well really will last. So maybe you had something else.
I guess you can jump in here, Rob. I think what Rob's saying is we're okay with site-specific condition 1.2, revise it to the satisfaction of the health department, and then we work with the health department, as opposed to 1.12 where we have that specific amount required. If that, as we go to the special permit, if it gets approved today, finalizing these things, then we'll work on that agreement Would you agree with that?
I do. That, well said. Any other questions of us?
Go over those again. 4 point,
Site-specific condition 1.2 says revise the soil mining permit to the satisfaction of the health department to ensure the soil mining operation will not compromise the existing water well. So we're willing to work with the health department. I think what we're saying is under condition 1.12, where it says the following condition shall apply, it puts a specific dollar amount on the surety. And so I think we would like to have that conversation with the health department on what is considered satisfactory to them as opposed to a specific dollar amount.
Excuse me for just one moment. Yes, sir.
We'll let them continue their rebuttal here in a moment. So procedurally, just so we get clear, we've made it clear to applicants that this kind of negotiation, particularly on a final action item, isn't really appropriate. That if somebody has conditions they want to change, they let the staff know 24 hours in advance so that we can come to you with, here's potential amendment. So if the Planning Commission is interested in acting on this today and making changes, our recommendation is you postpone this for 2 weeks. Because I think there's a little bit of confusion here. 1.12 clearly says if an agreement is needed, the applicant, if you take that out now saying, oh, well, we'll work it out, what if you don't work it out? Then there's a person who has a well that has gone bad, the water lines aren't there, they're still soil mining, they haven't installed any water lines, the city hasn't installed any water lines. What do? You don't have a surety, you don't have any way of backing it up. And a surety is a very normal thing that's a part of a soil mining process. So anyhow, we'd be happy to sit and discuss that, but that should occur over the next 2 weeks if there's going to be an amendment. Otherwise, we still recommend that it's approval today as it is.
Thank you.
Question?
Well, let's let them continue, and then you can ask your
Sure.
question.
They look like they were done.
Given the issue, and as small as it is, I hate to delay it. On the other hand, we don't have bulldozers out there ready to mine dirt anyway. There is confusion between those two provisions. They don't dovetail cleanly. So we thought the first provision that Nate had mentioned deals with that issue completely and does provide some hammer for the health department to have. And it does talk about if an agreement is reached in the other provision. So again, we'd suggest that be changed, but if it has to be continued 2 weeks, we'd accept that too, because we're not ready to, we don't have a bulldozer yet out there.
Okay, do you have anything
other
else?
questions?
No, and does that,
Well, my question is, which would you prefer, deferral or accepting it as it's written here?
Yeah, I suppose if we can't, if you can't amend it today, and I'm sorry, I just wasn't aware of the 24-hour issue that Steve talked about, but if you can't amend it today, I'd probably prefer that we take a couple of weeks and hammer that out and do it that way.
Thanks.
All right.
and basically that would apply to all 4 of the text changes?
It'd be 4.2.d, 4.2d.
Special permit, Dick.
I think it's just the mining permit.
Yep,
Right.
yeah,
And,
just the special permit.
You know, we know so little about this well. So in any event, that's kind of how I think that we'd want to have this happen.
okay.
I guess I'll just say,
Thank you.
on behalf, we're requesting a 2-week delay for 4.2d.
D, correct?
D is in dog, yep.
Bees and dog.
Yes. Okay, so we have now received a request for a 2-week deferral on 4.2D, but so we'll need to first take action on A, B, and C today, and then we can deal with the request for deferral because the order in which they're on the agenda. So, First thing we need to do is have a motion to close the public hearing.
I would move that we close the public hearing. Sorry.
We're kind of keep the public hearing open.
Oh, yeah.
Close the public hearing on items A, B, and C, but D would be good to leave that open. That way in 2 weeks, they can come back and say
Have discussion.
whatever they think after we've had a chance to meet in
Yep.
2 weeks.
Great.
Okay.
A, B, and C.
Second, Joy.
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Public hearing closed for items 4.2A through 4.2C.
I would move that we approve 4.2A annexation 23008.
Second, Joy.
Any discussion on this one? We can discuss all of them at this time. if
Well,
you
I
want.
think it's logical to postpone D and let the planning department and the proposers get together and see if they can't come up with language that's both suitable. Otherwise, I believe that there should be some guarantees to those homeowners. And I would support leaving that as proposed by the planning department if an agreement doesn't come forward.
Additional discussion.
I think as drafted, it's clear that there's still an opportunity to come to prove that, or to show to the health department satisfaction that there wouldn't be impacts to the well. And if not, then there would be an agreement. So I'm not sure what we're gaining with the deferral, but I will not be against it if that's what the applicant wants.
Any other discussion on A, B, and C of agenda item 4.2? Okay. Shelley?
Ball,
This is just for, the
A.
vote is just for 23008, because we have to vote
Correct.
on them all separately. Okay.
Yes.
okay, Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
4.2A approved, 7-0.
I would move that we approve 4.2B, change of zone 23057.
Second, Joy.
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
4.2B approved, 7-0.
I would move that we approve 4.2C, preliminary plat 24002.
Second, Joy.
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
4.2C approved, 7-0.
And I would move that we defer 4.2D for 2 weeks.
Second, Joy.
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
Approved 7-0 to the May 8th Public Planning Commission hearing.
We have a lot of things on May 8th.
Yeah, we do.
All right. At this time, anyone who wishes to speak on an item that is not on the agenda may do so. A motion?
I would move that we adjourn.
Second, Joy.
Ball,
Yes.
Campbell,
Yes.
Ebert,
Yes.
Fight,
Yes.
Joy,
Yes.
Rodenberg,
Yes.
Ryman Yost.
Yes.
We are adjourned.